بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Welcome to the second episode of the fourth season, $1 Trillion Problem, of the fourth podcast. I'm Ali Wazir.
I'm Ibrahim Ali.
And I'm Talha Muhammad.
And you can help us grow by giving us a follow on Instagram at thefourth.productions and Twitter at thefourth_prod, PROD. Thank you all for joining us again for another episode of the fourth podcast.
In this episode, we will continue our conversation about campus life and student debt. As we hinted at the end of last episode, we will talk about this. We'll talk about this theme through the lens of culture, and like specifically how culture dictates our attendance of college, how we start, how we get into college, and what we do in college.
Mm-hmm. It's more specifically the levels of education we decide to go into, what specific vocations we end up having as well, and who we affiliate ourselves with while we're in a college setting as well.
Yeah. So I think you started talking about this last time, Ali, where you mentioned that people are often influenced by their culture to like go to college in the first place. There's a lot of pressure in that sense. Do you have like more thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course.
Because I cut you off last week, so
No,
I'm feeling
man.
bad.
It's all good. I think from the concept, the general concept of the American dream is that any individual here in America can come in, get a good job, and then make good money. But built into that entire dream is a specific step, and that specific building block happens to be college. Unfortunately, you won't get past, many individuals will not get past the, six-figure, or break a six-figure income without a college degree. And that puts them back maybe a few $1,000s, maybe a few $100,000 in debt. That being said, it allows for institutions to abuse. They abuse that position. College, whether it's private or public, they're able to charge people hefty amounts, thousands of dollars in tuition, room and board, books, food, and it's almost become a business in a sense.
So, I mean, you brought up a really good point when you talked about the American dream, and kind of wanted to comment on that a little bit and talk about that a little bit for a little bit. So a lot of people have this concept of the American dream, right? Where you, like you said, you work hard, you go to college, you get a job, that sort of stuff, and then you buy your house with the white picket fence, and then you live happily for the rest of your life. So this version of the American dream is a lie.
Dang.
That's a big statement.
For real.
Yeah, because the American dream only works for a certain group of people. Primarily, well, it did back in the day, primarily for white people. This American dream never applied to people of color, black people, and any other minority, basically. Native Americans, I mean, like this entire country was built on corrupt beginnings, right? We came over here, we wiped out the Native American population, we brought slaves with us, and they built our infrastructure and our buildings, and they have never been repaid for their for the years of like torture and abuse that they've had to go through, right? So this notion that there's an American dream for all minorities and all people and all ethnicities is false to begin with, and overly optimistic at best, and a lie at worst. You know what I'm saying? So if we really look at it now, the American dream really doesn't exist anymore, because you have medical debt, because people can't afford medication. We talked about this in season 2 when we talked about empathy and people who don't have insurance.
Yeah, healthcare. That's true.
We talked about people have mounting amounts of student debt, and credit card debt, and people who are quote unquote illegal immigrants, right? There's no path to citizenship for them. People who are legal immigrants like recipients of DACA, for example. These guys are face threats of being deported. So my entire point here is that there's nothing called the American dream. It's just like this thing that's being concocted, and it's been pushed to us to make us think that America is the best country in the world.
No, I think it's a really deep thought, Ibrahim. It's just, it also ties into the culture of consumerism, where you have to have it, right? So you have to get that degree in order to get that 6-figure job, in order to have that 2-story house with 3 cars, you know, and a wife and 4 kids, right? Maybe a dog thrown in there too.
And then you have the stickers on the back of your car.
Yeah, and that sticker in the back, yeah. And unfortunately, it's just this overwhelming desire to, you know, achieve more wealth and income, and just let it accumulate in order to eventually, you know, pass it on to your children. And I know the general statistic is even if you have millions of dollars within 3 to 4 generations, that wealth is going to dwindle. So eventually, it's going to go away. It's just the amount of debt and the amount of stress and anxiety that individuals go through to achieve this quote-unquote American dream is crazy.
Yeah, no. So I think both of these issues tie in well into culture. The lack of the American dream and the consumerism, they're like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that go together in order to keep getting us to waste our money. But some of it we can I think we can step closer than this macro scale that we're looking at and look at a micro scale. So the three of us, I think, can talk well about the like first or second generation immigrant culture in this country, as we've talked before in season 1 about the colonized mentality. We can continue that conversation here, specifically in regards to our $1 trillion problem, you know, college and student debt. So how do we see immigrants and their children being expected to go to college, and how is that a negative? How does that impact their lives and this culture that we have as first and second generation immigrants? Do you guys think?
I mean, we're all like college-aged individuals, right?
Yeah.
So, was there ever an option for you guys to not go to college and pursue a path in your career that didn't include college?
Yeah, my extended family would have probably looked down on it.
Yeah, definitely.
My parents would have.
I mean, and just for like the people who listen, like, we're all brown, so it's just like we're speaking from that lens, that from the lens of that culture.
Yeah, the immigrant
for the culture.
Well. Yeah.
For the culture. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't go to college, man, like my parents would be ashamed of me. So that also ties into like more specifically. So we originally talked about the macro perspective of consumerism and the American dream, and then we brought it down to the idea of going to college in the first place. Now, specifically within our culture, the subcontinental culture, you really have 3 job options. And like this is the long-running joke of you're either a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or a failure. Right? Like straight up.
Right,
let's be real.
No, it's facts.
It is. And I mean, there's always a little bit of truth to every joke, right? So when it comes down to it, that option, at least for me growing up, and many of my peers at the university that are, you know, part of that culture as well, that was the only option we ever knew. Like, hey, be a doctor. Oh, you don't want to be a doctor? You can be an engineer. Oh, you don't want to be an engineer? Well, maybe law school is for you. You know. Oh, mama, I want to be an artist. Wait, what? You know, like you know that option right there gets wiped from kids' minds really quickly. And I think that idea of getting pushed into this specific mold, doctor, lawyer, engineer, is based on the fact that genuinely our parents want what's best for us, right? And that's generally speaking as well, right? I mean, at the same time, that idea of what's best for you comes to the fact that they want you to be economically stable. And so their idea of economically stable is what? 6-figure job, a doctor they see, you know, has a certain level of prestige based on the education they went through, and so on and so forth. Is it correct?
No.
That's the question.
No, it's not correct because...
Wow, okay, that's a strong...
Yeah, that's a strong no, bro.
I'm going hard in the paint today. I'm going hard in the paint. So, I think here So I think that we're seeing the effects of this mentality in right now in our society. Like, how many Muslims do we have we talked about this before in season 3 Invisibility. We have a clear lack of visibility in the arts, in entertainment, in reporting, in journalism, in aviation. We have one aviator amongst us who shall not be named. So, anyways, we have a clear lack of representation when it comes to like politics. Also, like just now we're getting more and more. Like we had Senator Keith Ellison from Minnesota.
Yeah,
and now we have
ever Muslim congressman.
And then now we have Ilhan Omar. And I feel like the reason that because they represent the same district, right? I'm pretty sure like it's a very either it's the same one.
Yeah.
Or it's like a very like it's in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think it's the same. I think it actually is. The same
and like the reason that is there is
Yeah.
because that their Somali Muslim population is so great in Minnesota
and politically active too.
Yeah. But you look anywhere else, we have Muslims in local government, but really like local government, like you have a very little amount of influence.
Even then, like how many
mayors?
I think there's just a couple of people in like the Texas upper and lower houses as well who are Muslim, like if at all.
And then we have barely like just like a handful, less than a handful of like maybe I think 2 Congress people, right? You have Rashida Tlaib, and then we have Ilhan. Like I think those are the only 2 Muslim congressmen, congresswomen that we have. So like we can see the effects of us becoming doctors, engineers, lawyers, like in front of our very eyes.
Of course.
We see that our portrayal in the media is like completely messed up, just because we don't have news anchors that are not Muslim or journalists that are not Muslim who can provide that accurate view of Muslim issues and Muslim things that pertain to Muslims.
You know, I think Sister Hira Hashmi actually spoke about that.
Yeah, she did.
When we interviewed her last season, she spoke about the necessity of Muslims being able to go into these sort of news outlets, as you mentioned, Ibrahim. I 100%. I think we mentioned this last season. We 100% agree with her. Like it's more than necessary at this point, especially since the last 50 years, half a century, has been pushed. Our entire last few generations have been pushed into these fields. It's great if you want to become a doctor and you truly enjoy that. And what's interesting is you can utilize that capital and that income that you receive from that vocation into pursuing Muslim interests. You know, and I think that's also a perspective that we need to have too. It's like you can do these jobs. We're not saying like, if you're pre-med, stop being pre-med. You know, like go into A-Tech or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So for it's like the arts degree, all right? Yeah. For those of us that are listening out there. My perspective on this is that utilize whatever you can from whatever degree you're getting, whatever vocation you're going into, to benefit those individuals that truly want what's good for society.
This actually leads
back to the community, right?
It actually leads to an interesting point, which is supporting Muslim businesses. Like we're Muslims, right? So we don't support Muslim businesses. If you look at the Jewish community, like if you have a community of Jews, right? Everybody supports each other. Like they go to Jewish grocery stores, they go to Jewish banks, they go to Jewish, they buy homes from Jewish realtors, Jewish real estate investors. Like it's like an entire very close-knit community. And if you look at communities of people that are suffering, and like they're not close-knit at all. They have people who are like high-ranking individuals, but they don't reinvest that money back into their society, back into the culture that they came from.
So that money starts leaving the community.
Exactly.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You know what's interesting is we actually see that now actually the African American community has caught on to that really well. With a lot of wealthy, successful African Americans that have gone on to do amazing things in our community. Now, actually, we see, especially in our generation and the generation older than us, like one generation above, you see a lot of entrepreneurs, business people, lawmakers, athletes. They're giving back to their communities. One example that comes to mind specifically is like just like off the top of my head, because I'm a sports fanatic, is LeBron. Like literally his I Promise school and then funding education. Like literally, they have free tuition at the University of Ohio, or some. I think it's University of Akron. I'm not entirely sure actually. But it's an amazing opportunity. Like that's what we as a Muslim community should be doing too.
Yeah, another example is like probably obviously a lot of it is for the optics, but like President Barack Obama building his presidential library in the south side of Chicago. You know, that's like a majority African American area of Chicago, and previously like known for its gang violence, very impoverished. A lot of people over there living in poverty, and he's building his presidential center over there in order to give back. You know,
I think sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think an even better example is the late rapper Nipsey Hussle. And if you really look at like what this man did, like it wasn't for the recognition, it wasn't for like the PR opportunities. It wasn't. It was like actual real work. Like he made it in the rap industry. Like he made a lot of money. And he reinvested that money back into his own neighborhood where he came from. And that unfortunately led to his demise.
Yeah.
So he had this clothing company that he made. He employed people. He literally bought like an entire strip mall. And he employed people from his community. Like to work at his stores, to help manufacture his clothing, to sell his clothing. And like it was a very tight-knit community. And the reason that he died was because he got into an argument of sorts with somebody, like with the local, basically. And the guy came and he shot him like 9 or 10 times.
Wow. Rest in peace, man.
Yeah, so it's like if you really look at, I think the black community is doing a better job now of supporting black-owned businesses, and all minority communities should come together and support each other, you know, in order for the betterment of us. Like we have this, like just to bring it back to what we're talking about, right? We have this attitude where, you know, if you don't do the doctor, engineer, lawyer path, right, you're basically a failure. And then as soon as you do these things, you move into a higher end neighborhood. Like in Dallas, in DFW, we have Highland Park. You become a doctor, you move into Highland Park.
Yeah, you did that.
What are all
or you move out into the suburbs, you know? We talked about this with Sheikh Mikhail Smith, where, you know, you get your start in like the urban core. You're going over there. You're like that's a majority.
That's where you grind,
area.
basically.
That's where you grind, and then you don't give back in that community. You when you make it like at 35 or whatever, make it quote unquote. Then you move out to Plano. You move out to Allen. He talked a lot about this, I think, specifically, and it's true. It's true.
It's like, and then these communities get left behind, and like people who don't have the same access, like we talked about in our first episode, right? How we talked about how in season 4, episode 1, how we talked about how people who have less opportunities in life to begin with, who start from a disadvantageous position, they have to take out more loans, they have to take out more student debt, and then that just sets them back even further, even though their academic potential might be higher than any one of us. You know what I'm saying?
And I mean, the thing about academic potential is also like it's a specific talent, right? And it leaves out people who have other talents that in this capitalist system aren't exploitable. So if you're like a really good artist, you know, that market's oversaturated. So you need to be able to like build a name for yourself if you want to make it big. You can't just be a good artist, right? And a lot of people have this talent, but then they're left behind because it's not a talent that's necessarily exploitable very easily as the talent of like doing well on exams and then becoming a doctor, right? So this is all food for thought.
I mean, actually, you brought up a point about artistry, right? I think it's very exploitable because it's like you have an artist, right? Or like you have an up and coming artist, right? And then you have an artist that's born into a rich family. They can go to a rich like a fancy art school. They can, you know, have that prestige of having gone to this upper end, high end art school, and they create some subpar piece of art that sells for millions of dollars. Meanwhile, you have like kids and people creating real great pieces of art, whether it's like rap music, for example, right? And it's looked down upon as not real art because it doesn't fit the mold of what art is traditionally like a painting or, you know, like classical music. Oh, I don't know, whatever. So like there is sort of a barrier into high art. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like to having to having that respect.
No, I mean, I think this doesn't always come through because it's like you see like like every other day in the news, it's like, oh, this piece of art sold for like $40 million, right? But I'm not gonna bring up money laundering.
I wanted to bring that up, but you know.
But even besides all of that, it's like a lot of it is like name recognition and just like how well you can build a brand or what schools you had access to, and not necessarily a commentary on the art itself or like where it's coming from and what it means. You know, that's
I remember
how
Kanye
it
was
is.
talking about this at one point.
Kanye the GOAT.
Kanye West.
Yes, sir.
Mr. West.
He was saying that
Look up Mr. West.
he was saying that you cannot succeed in the fashion industry unless you have the backing of a major corporation behind you. So if you're not already part of a major company, they won't let you design anything.
Wow.
Even if you have the best ideas, the most that they limit you is like the t-shirts or something. Like they won't let you have an artistic vision or artistic design. They'll leave that to the people that have been doing it for years. Like same old white dudes that have been doing it for years.
Yeah, so they just put a restriction on your creative ability. That's what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think another thing when people from immigrant communities are going off to college is like, because it's like such an expectation, we don't even often look at whether it's like the best thing for the kid, right? I think we can all relate to that. Like the thing is, college is like expensive, obviously, especially with that, like the way the system works in this country that we talked extensively about last episode. But you know, very few people from immigrant communities, in my anecdotal experience anyway, would consider sending their kid to like trade school, right?
Yeah.
Learn how to become an electrician or a plumber or a carpenter. And it's not even about the financial stability at that point. It's just about the prestige, maybe.
Man,
Or you know,
plumbers make big bucks, bro.
No, I mean
no. All three
yeah.
of these genuinely make big bucks in this country.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
because
there's so
of,
few of them.
yeah, because of the cost of labor and like that, and like trade school costs nothing. And it takes like such a short amount of time. Then you
Yeah.
get an apprenticeship. You're working. You're making bank. You know. Roofers even, you know, like they actually make good money in this country, and like they have very little debt to pay off by the time they can start making that money. But it's what we see. Like it's a stigma against these occupations for no other reason other than that you don't have to go to college for them. I would assume.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I think you touched on a really good point. Is the concept of like clout in regards to these jobs. Like you have to, like, when you hear the word doctor, especially in our community, being from the subcontinent, like, I'll be real, aunties and uncles, they consider like doctor to be like
A term of respect.
like this dude's like the prince of some country or something. Like walking into your house and he's like, oh,
Dr. Saab, basically.
Dr. Saab, hey.
Doctors.
He's an orthopedic surgeon. And it's like, I remember like my own personal experience. Like I had a family member that introduced me to this guy. He's an orthopedic surgeon, and like the way her eyes were like wide open, I was like, bro, like you would have thought she was introducing you to like the president of the United States or something like that. Like I mean not her current one specifically, but like someone of like amazing like unfortunate like societal status, you know.
I thought you liked Trump.
We're gonna redact this one. Yeah, it's just really interesting how this concept of like clout has entered. Like, oh, he's a doctor or she's a doctor, or like even when it comes to like getting married too. You know, like, oh, this person's a doctor, they're gonna make good money, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But here's the thing: is like, sure, the guy's a surgeon, but you want to marry him to your daughter when he's gonna be working 90 hours a week and he's only gonna see her for like 40 hours, and he's gonna be sleeping for 30 of those. You know, like we don't even plan on our families properly because we look so well, like so much into like the job that an individual has, you know, and it literally seeps into that one cultural aspect, seeps into all other parts of our lives, and it affects families. You know, like I mean, doctors, a lot of doctors get divorced. That's a reality. A lot of doctors do get divorced because like they can't balance their work and family life. Like how do you expect to have? I remember like a personal anecdote was like my sister was like, "Yo, I want to have like 8 kids," and she wants to be a physician. I'm like, how are you gonna balance that? Like straight up, straight up. No, you can't have one or the other and then neglect your kids, and then you're gonna get upset at them when they don't want to do anything in life because you weren't there.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the reality. Is like when you go into these jobs because of that cultural stigma that's put into your parents' head. Your parents' heads being immigrants. That's gonna affect your family here in America too. Like you can't let that get to your head. You got to make decisions that are best for yourself and best for your future family too. And like, unfortunately, that's also a dilemma that our generation's having, right? Like, how do you go about telling your parents, yo, I don't want to do medicine? Have you guys ever had that conversation with your parents? I don't know, maybe our listeners have. It's like, I know a few people, like, they straight up said, like, tell their parents, I don't want to do medicine. I want to go study, like, Islam. I want to go study theology, you know?
Yeah.
Parents flip, bro.
Or anything, really, like, anything other than...
Like, parents flip. Like, it's not even funny, dude. Parents, like, won't talk to you for a week.
Wow.
Like, straight up, your parents be like, Beta, you okay? You know, like, I remember, and my Mela bless her parents. I mean, we're not roasting parents out here. It's just, like, it's a cultural stigma that's been ingrained. It's really hard to, like, break past it. I remember me personally, I told my parents I wanted to be a lawyer. And then, like, overnight, my dad became an expert on, like, lawyer salaries. And, like, the next morning, let's take a seat. And I was like, bro.
Oh, shoot.
I mean, a week later, I was a biology major, so. So, like, this does play a massive role. And I have no regrets, actually, in regards to that. Like, my dad actually didn't know what was best. I actually ended up liking biology. But if any of y'all listeners out there, like, don't really vibe with your major, just know it's not the end of the world to change it. My bad, I didn't mean to, like, dive into it real quick.
No,
100%.
That's the point of this episode. Come on, work with us.
So that's the big facts right there, actually.
So, yeah, this is a lot of what we see in terms of the cultural expectations for going to college.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I mean, the reality is you complaining, I mean, not you specifically, but, like, our communities are complaining about not having, for example, halal food options. But then open up a restaurant, bro. Why are you complaining? Like,
open up a restaurant or like have...
Restaurant is actually stressful business.
Yeah, I'm saying... Yeah, my bad. I meant, like, you know, get the community together and do something about it, you know? You complain about riba, right? You complain about loans and interest. Well, get your communities together, like, put the 3 to 6 million Muslim heads together in this country and do something about it.
We were complaining about loans and interest last
episode,
man.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, I'm talking about, like, a general us, like a general...
No, you wanna make the fourth bank?
What?
The bank.
The
bank is open.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's one of the issues. Is like, I remember Sheikh Hamza Yusuf was mentioning before. Like, this was like years ago, man. He mentioned, like, who told you need to get a higher education?
Yeah.
Like, straight up, like, where in your religion does it say? I mean, at least for our Muslims out there, like, where is it in your religion that it says you have to be a doctor? Or in your deen that you have to be, like, get a PhD in engineering or a master's in engineering? You know what I'm saying? And put yourself like $100,000 in debt. You know, like, is that even necessary? You know?
To really break it down, right? To get to the crux of the issue, like we mentioned, financial stability, right?
Yeah.
As being a big motivator. A big motivator into why people go to college. So if we really look at the crux of the issue, right, which is financial stability, you don't have to have a college degree to have a vastly successful financial life. Like,
no, but like, why do you even need? I mean, my counter argument would be like, why do you even need to have a vastly successful life, bro? That's not gonna make you like happy.
No.
Straight up.
Yeah, I think you're touching on a different. So I'm not talking about happiness, right?
Yeah.
Attaining happiness and financial stability are different things. Although they do.
You're talking about just general financial stability.
Yes, because
being able to live comfortably. Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, to your point, financial stability and happiness have a slight correlation, but that does not mean that they're entirely correlated, right?
It's not causation or never mind, actually that's a different.
That's different.
I don't even know if that's true, but you know. All right.
Damn, bro, what do you mean that's not true?
I mean, like, bro, I know so many rich people who are sad as hell.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay, but
most of the rich people are pretty sad.
But the thing is that if you're rich, right, you don't have to worry about making the next bill. A vast amount of your anxiety is taken away from having that money. I'm not saying I'm saying okay,
more money, more problems, man.
True.
But
the thing is, I like this one saying a lot. Yeah. It's like money cannot buy you happiness. No, money can buy you happiness.
Can or can't?
Can.
Okay.
But it cannot take away your sadness. You can't buy. You can't pay your problems away. You know what I'm saying? Think about it.
I think the concept of happiness is just intrinsic in whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, I know poor people who are happy.
Yeah. And thing is that they don't have to have money to be happy, right?
Word, yeah.
But their lives could be easier if they had more money. Like a lot of the
Yeah,
anxiety.
but they don't even necessarily care for that money at that point.
I guess, yeah.
It depends, yeah. For some people, like, if you get more money, actually, it's like bigger problems come from it.
True.
And, you know, it affects your interpersonal relationships. It affects your, I don't know, ambitions in life, you know, this kind of stuff.
I feel like Snoop Dogg was talking about this once. He was saying that he's the hardest working person in the room, right? And he has like a bunch of his guys with him, like his cousins and like his friends from back in the day, and they're not working hard, and he's giving them money. So,
what should you do?
like that there comes the problem, right? Like, how do you cut them off because they're kind of leeches to you, right? I guess I understand what you're saying about having more money, more problems.
Yeah.
That's definitely a thing.
My bad, Ibrahim. We went on like a whole other tangent about happiness and stuff, man. What were you saying originally?
To look at the crux of the issue, right? We go to college to become financially stable, but we see so many fields where a college education is not necessary to be successful in that field.
Right, yeah,
like one
trade school.
like trade school, for example, right? Or engineering, computer science, and IT. Like that's my field. I don't have to go to college to be successful in those fields. There's so many people who just don't go to college and they do other certifications, other trainings. They have other career paths where they, work hard and they go up the ladder in their company. And
although I'm not sure about this because I know people who get a start like that, but then at some point they like hit a ceiling, right? Especially in the technological field, in the field that you're speaking about, they'll hit a ceiling where like their manager will come and be like, all right, like we want to promote you, but you gotta go back to school and get a degree first, right? And maybe at that point, like the company, if they really like you, they'll help like fund it or something. But this also goes back to like our culture and our culture of expectations. Like they are not promoting you at this point, not because you can't do the work, not because you haven't proven that you're capable, but just because they want to say, oh, all our managers have college degrees.
They want that line on your resume.
Yeah,
sure.
They want it to make their company look good. So it's about subverting these expectations as well, and working as working to like increase awareness that like, bro, I should, like, if I can do the work, that's what should matter, right? It shouldn't be a culture of like go to college. Like you should, like I'm not against going to college if that's like what you want to do and what you need to do what you want to do. Like obviously doctors can't get a start without a college degree. You can't just go and like start practicing surgery on your little cousin, you know.
garage surgery.
Garage surgery, yeah. That's but for most fields you don't need it, and it also shouldn't be like a workplace expectation that like you'll hit a ceiling if you don't have a degree, you know, like especially while college isn't free. Like at that point it's just about the clout, like you mentioned, Ali, and it's not about anything substantive. Going back to another point as well, it's like, all right, like when you actually do go through college and then go through grad school, whatever, and you become a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer, I feel like a lot of this is rooted also in like a selfishness, to be blunt, and not looking at the needs of the greater community. Like we clearly have a problem in our specific community with like people like people not having a source of how do I say this? Like with members of the community not having a source of backup financial stability, right? Because like say if you're like a religious person, theologically there's a lot of issues with life insurance, right? So we have a problem in this community where like people's husbands, like the money makers of the family, primary whatever income generators, thank you, have passed away, right? And then there's like after a few years like it starts running dry, and this is like a problem in our community, right? And we see it, but like no one like is taught as a kid that you need to like go and like look at your career path as to the needs of your community. So that's why you don't see people like trying to make an alternative to life insurance for these widows and orphans, right?
Yeah.
And it's because it's like rooted in a culture of selfishness where this is not what your parents will tell you. Like, yo, kid, you're in high school now. What do you think the community needs, and how do you think you can solve that thing? It's just like, yo, kid, you're in high school now. Start your MCAT prep.
Prep for your SAT, that type of stuff.
Right. Yeah. So I think this is like another part of our culture that we can really work to implement in the future with our children as well. Like look at the needs of the community and work to do that.
Yeah, that's all I think though.
Go ahead.
I think that's a really strong sentiment. I think it's something that we, especially as like a minority Muslim ummah here in the United States, we need to really take that into account and kind of ingrain that deep into our own brains, because like that's how you help your community grow. That's how you are able to push forward the truth and like kind of get rid of Islamophobia, get rid of all these racist sentiments. If you're able to do that, if you're able to look at your goals from the perspective of what benefits the community, you'll definitely be able to change things within like a few generations. Easy, less than that, maybe 1 or 2 generations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think we failed to look at the long play over here. We only look short term. Like, we're running the ball. Like, we're not trying to throw it deep.
Mm-hmm.
We're not gonna get. It's like we're not really getting anywhere. Mm-hmm. It's like we're making
49ers fan right here, guys.
Well, you got called out.
We did well.
And you're running the ball because Jimmy
Oh no! Well, we didn't run the ball in the Super Bowl, so we lost. Rest in peace.
Patrick Mahomes still chasing you?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, you see him around?
Yeah, I see him everywhere I go, bro. I see him in my dreams. He's haunting me.
No, go ahead, man. What were you saying?
Yeah, it's like we don't look at the long picture, right? We only look at, okay, my son needs income. He needs to have 4 cars, 3 wives, and I'm just joking.
What?
Oh, he needs to have
Eddie, what do you think?
Oh, man. I think that's an interesting comment. Yeah, dude, it's just Ibrahim's exactly right. We look at
that we need to have 3 wives.
No. It's right about like our parents came here, right, as immigrants, and so their major concern was what? Economic, right? Economic feasibility in regards to how can I support my family, how can I support my home. So they're
going to support my families.
Dude, stop.
they're literally translating that mentality and kind of in their upbringing of their children, like imposing that mentality on them too.
Word.
And so like that's how, at least with our generation, alhamdulillah, like our parents like kind of did what they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. They did what they had to do, right? And build this like we alhamdulillah, we live in good places, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like generally speaking, the Muslim communities, they're pretty well off compared to like
in this country, yeah.
In this country, right? Mm-hmm. That's why I meant my bad. Yeah. So like it's our job now as the next generation to take.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, go ahead and finish your point. But I got yeah.
To like take that and build upon it,
Word, yeah.
And we can look at it from a different perspective because alhamdulillah, like we have a foundation, right? Mm-hmm. Like our parents went to college. I'm not saying that's like a good or bad thing, but they did what they had to do in order to get to where they are economically, right?
Right.
And that kind of gives us the kind of like the leeway to look at these other things, like how can we benefit our communities? Mm-hmm. How can we help them grow? Mm-hmm. How can we, get rid of injustices and racism and all these different things? Because for them, it was like, how do I know? Like, it was literally how do I learn English? How do I communicate with the people in this, in this country? Mm-hmm. At least for like, like immigrant families.
Sure.
So like. That I feel like the struggles are a bit different, and perhaps that's why that mentality is so ingrained in them.
Yeah,
like you need to be economically stable, and obviously the clout is there. By all means, like we're not doubting it. The clout is there. It's like a mix. It's like an odd mix of both of them. Where like an auntie can go and say, my son's a doctor, my daughter's a doctor, but also like deep down, deep down, she's just happy that you're economically stable. I would hope so. I would hope so, right?
Probably.
I hope it's not just a clout like 110%. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe she. Right.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
She's trying to get in that nice nursing home, you know.
Oh my god.
Oh no! No!
Oh my god, bro.
I apologize. But to touch back on something you mentioned, like you said that like our community is well off, and that might be true for like a segment of our community, but it's also like a segment of our community is not well off, and we need to recognize that, right?
Yeah.
A good portion, like I think a third at least of Muslims in this country are African Americans, and that segment of the population is not who you see becoming doctors and engineers and lawyers, and they're still part of our community, right?
Of course.
So it's about, okay, our parents came here, they didn't really know the native struggles, they didn't know the situation of Islam that was already natively present in this country, but so they did what they had to do for themselves. But now that we're in this position of financial stability, we don't want to just be running the same circle, where we also just like looking out for ourselves, right? We like look back at the community. Okay, what are the African American mosques lacking? How can I be of service to them? What can I do in my life to increase like, you know, the financial stability of the rest of my community as well? And then like, how do I take that and increase political engagement in my community? How do I make us like a force to be reckoned with? Like, no politician from either party really panders to us much.
That's true.
It's the primary season right now, and Joe Biden, who's like the front runner of the Democratic Party right now, he has a Muslim outreach person on his team. It's a Hindu guy who likes BJP in India, right? That's how little he cares about our community. That he's like, this is another brown guy, just throw him in there. I mean,
It's good enough.
how insulting is that,
For
right?
real, right?
Right? Like, it's because we have no clout. It's like, oh my god, it's like what if his like LGBT outreach coordinator was like a person who wanted shock therapy for kids, you know, like a Mike Pence looking guy. Like, there would be immense outcry over that, but no one even knows that like his Muslim guy is actually a Hindu who supports BJP in India.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Disgusting. And like, really, like, the thing is like, if everybody's just becoming lawyers and engineers and doctors, like what are we doing with this, right? Is it all just about the money? Like, are we that shallow? I don't know. This is
I think we have the privilege that the previous generation didn't have, to where we can think about these issues.
word, yeah.
So like, previous generation was like, I just moved here. How do I drive the car? Like, how do I open a bank account? How do I go to, like, how do I pay for college? Now we have the privilege and the opportunity, so we can think about these different issues, because they didn't grow up here, right? We grew up here. We know the struggles that the people that are native to this country go through. Either that be minority, we might vicariously experience those struggles, not like personally experience them, but you know, we have knowledge of them. We're more aware of those issues, and like we talked about in season 3, we can we can help these causes and aid them by giving them visibility, like, go ahead and pursue your college education, right? But don't forget that there are communities and there's minority groups and there's ethnicities that need our help, that need our help, and that turn, like, you know, they'll help us when we need help. And like, we have that reciprocity in between us.
Ibrahim, man, you made some really good points. And for our listeners out there, I want to thank you all for tuning in to episode 2 of the 4th season of the 4th podcast. Our next episode, which will stream next week, will be about wellness and how it applies to the college campus and community life. You can help us grow by giving us a follow on Instagram at the4th.productions and Twitter at the4th_prod, PROD. As of now, we hope you have a great rest of your day. बेटा ये क्या है